All right, let's dive into something pretty interesting today. The Law of One and how it all connects to, well, aliens and UFOs. We've got some pretty wild stuff to unpack here. Scholarly articles, ufology texts, the whole works. Basically, what we want to figure out is there a link between this Law of One philosophy and all these ideas about extraterrestrials, especially the ones that, might not be so friendly?
It's a really fascinating mix, isn't it? Spirituality, technology, the unknown. Kind of like we're peering into this crazy kaleidoscope where ancient beliefs and modern anxieties and the vastness of space, they all come crashing together.
Okay, so before we get lost in space, let's break down the Law of One a bit. We've got this audio source here that explains it. Essentially, it's a philosophy suggesting that everything in the universe, it's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. A sort of universal web of energy, where we're all connected, like we're all part of this massive cosmic dance. But it's not just about connection. The law of one really focuses on spiritual evolution too, specifically on these energy centers called chakras.
Now, chakras, I've heard that word before, but to be honest, I don't really get them. Could you maybe expand on how they fit into all of this Law of One stuff?
Sure, think of chakras as these swirling energy centers within you, each one associated with specific aspects of, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual self. Law of One suggests that by understanding and balancing these chakras, we can actually boost our spiritual growth and really tap into that interconnectedness of the universe, like fine-tuning a radio so you get a clearer signal. But in this case, the signal is cosmic consciousness.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Mhm.
So, are these chakras, are they like the key to actually connecting with extraterrestrials, or is there more to it than that?
That's where things get really interesting. See, the Law of One, it doesn't explicitly talk about aliens or UFOs, but that emphasis on universal interconnectedness and spiritual evolution, it kind of lays the groundwork for exploring the possibility of extraterrestrial life and how it might play a role in humanity's spiritual journey.
And our research shows that this exploration, well, it's taken a lot of different forms over the years. I mean, these scholarly articles we've got, they point out that some of the earliest UFO religions, they actually had a really optimistic view of aliens.
Exactly. You got to think back to the 1950s, right? The Cold War. Anxieties about nuclear war they were through the roof. And suddenly you have these stories popping up about benevolent space brothers, technologically advanced beings coming to Earth to guide humanity, to show us a better path, a brighter future. It was like this incredible beacon of hope for a world teetering on the brink of destroying itself.
So people were really searching for hope. And these space brothers, they offered a kind of cosmic lifeline. Do we have any specific examples of how this hope actually played out in those early UFO religions?
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Aetherius Society, for example. Founded in the 50s, they believed that these advanced extraterrestrials, especially this cosmic master they call Aetherius, are actively working to uplift humanity. Spiritually, technologically, their teachings, they emphasize interplanetary peace, cooperation, this vision of a united Earth, working together with other civilizations out there in the cosmos.
It's interesting how this idea of a united Earth, a concept that felt so idealistic during the Cold War, it still resonates today. But looking at our research, it seems not all views on extraterrestrials are quite so rosy.
That's true. While some found comfort and hope in this Space Brothers narrative, others, well, they started viewing those extraterrestrial encounters through a much darker lens.
So what caused this shift, this move from these friendly aliens to something more malevolent? Was it gradual, or was there like a specific event that kind of flipped the switch on how people saw them?
Well, there wasn't one single event, really. More like a bunch of different factors that kind of converged. Remember, the late 20th century, it was a time of massive social and political upheaval, and that fueled anxieties about hidden agendas, about unseen forces controlling the world.
Right. Yeah, I can see how that atmosphere paranoia could easily bleed into how people view extraterrestrials. Suddenly, those friendly space brothers might start looking like something a lot more threatening.
Exactly. And this shift, it's reflected in the rise of conspiracy theories that portray extraterrestrials as manipulative, even malevolent. They have their own agendas. You see this in David Icke's theory of reptilian beings secretly controlling the world. That really gained traction around this time.
Oh, right, the one where like politicians and celebrities are actually like shape-shifting reptilians in disguise. I've seen that online. It's pretty wild.
It is. It is a rather extraordinary claim. Ix theory, it taps into those older fears of hidden enemies and demonic forces, but with a modern twist. Instead of, devils and demons, we have reptilian overlords pulling the strings from the shadows.
So it's like those ancient fears are just being repackaged for a more technologically advanced world. Instead of worrying about demonic possession, now we're worried about reptilian infiltration.
Exactly. And this blending of ancient fears with modern anxieties, it's a recurring theme in how we interpret, how we make sense of the UFO phenomenon. It's like we're always trying to fit the unknown into these familiar narratives, even if they are, a bit unsettling.
So we've gone from benevolent space brothers to sinister reptilians. Is there any middle ground here, or is it strictly one or the other?
Oh, there's definitely a whole spectrum of beliefs, and some fall somewhere in between those two extremes. Like, for instance, there's this book, Alien Interview, that offers a slightly different perspective. It claims to be a transcript of an interview with a crashed alien, Errol, who details this long history of manipulation, of control of humankind by this race called the Old Empire.
So not necessarily evil, but not the benevolent guides that we see in those earlier UFO religions either.
Exactly. The old empire in this story, they're portrayed as this advanced civilization that's been using Earth, using its inhabitants for their own purposes for millennia. It's a story about cosmic power dynamics with humanity caught in the middle.
That alien interview sounds like it could be a whole deep dive all on its own.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot to unpack there. But for now, the important thing is that it adds another layer to how we understand how these extraterrestrial beliefs have evolved. It's not just about good versus evil. It's about power. It's about control. It's about the complex relationship between humanity and these potentially more advanced civilizations.
And speaking of complex relationships, we can't ignore the whole alien abduction phenomenon. These stories are they're both terrifying and fascinating, and they really seem to tap into some deep-seated fear about being powerless, about being at the mercy of forces we don't understand.
You're absolutely right. Abduction narratives, they're a huge part of UFO lore, and they often evoke this sense of vulnerability, of terror. Carl Sagan, in his book The Demon Haunted World, he offers a more skeptical perspective on these experiences. He suggests that some, maybe even all, abduction accounts could be rooted in psychological phenomena, especially repressed trauma, things like childhood sexual abuse. He argues that the mind, especially when it's dealing with deeply buried trauma, it can create these elaborate and often terrifying narratives that feel incredibly real to the person experiencing them.
So instead of being whisked away on a spaceship,
Hmm.
these individuals they might be reliving or reinterpreting past trauma in a way that manifests as this alien abduction scenario.
That's Sagan's argument. He doesn't deny the intense emotional reality of these experiences, but he suggests that we need to consider alternative explanations before we jump to conclusions about aliens intervening.
That's a pretty sobering thought. But our research also mentioned some counter arguments to Sagan's skepticism, specifically the 1947 incident in Roswell, New Mexico. That's basically become the holy grail of ufology, hasn't it?
It certainly has. The Roswell
Right.
incident, with its alleged UFO crash and the subsequent military cover-up, it continues to fascinate and fuel conspiracy theories to this day.
And we've actually got this really detailed report here, U-Wave of 1947.
Yeah.
It lays out the events as they unfolded, describes witness accounts of seeing this strange metallic debris scattered across the desert, and the government's initial explanation that it was a weather balloon, which a lot of people just didn't buy.
Right.
And then of course you have the rumors of recovered alien bodies, secret autopsies, all adding to the mystery and the intrigue.
The Roswell incident, regardless of what truly happened, it really became a turning point in how we view UFOs and in how we view the possibility of government involvement. It solidified this idea of a hidden truth, a reality that's being concealed from the public. And once that idea takes root, it's hard to shake.
It's like a seed of doubt was planted.
Yeah.
And it's just continued to grow ever since. And it makes you wonder, If there really is a cover-up, what else are they hiding from us?
That's a question that continues to haunt many who delve into the world of UFOs and government conspiracies.
Well, this has been quite a journey already. We've covered so much, from the philosophical foundations of the Law of One to the anxieties of the Cold War, the rise of these sinister extraterrestrial narratives, and we've really only just scratched the surface.
We have. There's so much more to explore. The intersection of UFO beliefs with millenarianism, the powerful role of disinformation in shaping how we understand this phenomenon. But for now, let's take a break and let our listeners process all this fascinating and sometimes unsettling information. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the Law of One and its connection to the constantly evolving world of UFO beliefs.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Law of One and, its relationship to the whole world of UFOs. Last time we were talking about disinformation and how belief and perception, play a role when we talk about these extraterrestrial encounters.
We were, and I think it's really important to remember that this UFO phenomenon, it's not, one size fits all. There are so many different beliefs out there. Some are grounded in scientific inquiry. Others lean more towards the mystical, the religious even.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just believing or not believing in UFOs. It's really about how those beliefs shape, how we see the world, how we see ourselves in it.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. We've got this book, The Gods of Outer Space, and it really digs into the history of these different UFO cults, these new religious movements that have popped up all around the world.
Okay, cults. Now we're getting into some potentially dangerous territory. I remember reading about the Heaven's Gate cult, that tragic mass suicide back in '97. They believed they were going to be transported to a spaceship following the Hale-Bopp comet.
Yeah, that was a horrific event, and it really highlights the dangers of when these belief systems become so detached from reality. But it's important to remember not all UFO groups are cults or dangerous. Many are just communities of people who share an interest in extraterrestrial life and in how it might impact humanity.
That's a good point. It's easy to lump everyone together, especially when we're talking about something as fringe as UFO beliefs. But the Gods of Outer Space, it also mentions that these movements often they take bits and pieces from existing religions, from spiritual traditions.
Absolutely. These beliefs don't just appear out of nowhere. They're intertwined with these existing religious ideas, philosophies, cultural anxieties, all of it.
Do we have an example of how a UFO group might blend with more traditional religious beliefs?
Sure, look at the real aliens. They believe that extraterrestrials created humans, through genetic engineering, and they believe they'll one day return to Earth. Now, that might sound like something straight out of science fiction, but the real aliens, they actually incorporate elements from a lot of different religious traditions into their belief system. They draw parallels between these extraterrestrial creators and the gods, the prophets of these traditional religions.
So instead of seeing science and religion as conflicting, they're kind of merging the two into this unique blend of ufology and spirituality.
That's exactly it. And the Renalians aren't alone. A lot of UFO groups draw inspiration from different spiritual philosophical traditions, creating these hybrid belief systems that reflect, this fusion of ancient wisdom and these modern extraterrestrial narratives.
It's like they're taking the building blocks of existing belief systems and just rearranging them, creating something totally new.
That's a great way to put it. And this constant adaptation, reinvention, it's always happening within the UFO community as new information comes out, as old beliefs are challenged.
But it's not just borrowing from existing religions, is it? Our research mentions that the gods of Eden, it suggests a possible link between the rise of UFO religions and those earlier esoteric traditions like theosophy.
Right. That's an interesting connection. For those who might not know, theosophy it's a spiritual and philosophical movement. It emerged in the late 19th century, emphasizes the existence of this hidden knowledge of spiritual masters guiding humanity's evolution. And some scholars argue that theosophy actually it laid the groundwork for a lot of new age beliefs, including those that center around extraterrestrial life.
So theosophy, with its focus on hidden masters, on cosmic evolution, it kind of provided a foundation for later UFO religions to spring from.
That's the theory. It's like theosophy planted the seeds of these ideas about advanced beings, about hidden dimensions, and then UFO narratives came along and they gave those ideas a more concrete framework to take root. Even if that framework is, often pretty fantastical.
It's like a cosmic game of telephone.
Yeah.
Ideas get passed down, they get transformed along the way.
That's a great analogy. And that process, that transmission and transformation, it's key to understanding how these UFO beliefs have evolved. It's not static, it's dynamic. It's this interplay of ideas, interpretations, experiences.
So we've got traditional religions, esoteric traditions, all sorts of hybrid belief systems. Are there any groups that focus more on the scientific side of things, actually trying to prove that extraterrestrial life exists using evidence, using data?
Oh, absolutely. There are organizations like MUFO and the Mutual UFO Network. They focus on investigating UFO sightings, collecting data in this really systematic scientific way. They try to approach the phenomenon from a more objective standpoint. They use rigorous methods to analyze reports, to analyze evidence.
So while some groups are busy building these elaborate cosmologies incorporating ancient prophecies, others are out there with their cameras, with their recording equipment, trying to catch that one definitive piece of evidence that says, hey, we're not alone.
Exactly. And that diversity of approaches, that's what makes the UFO phenomenon so complex, so fascinating. It's this multifaceted puzzle, and there are no easy answers.
And as we've seen, some of those pieces might be intentionally misleading, especially
Yeah.
especially if those disinformation claims in the Omega file, if those are true.
Right. We can't forget that there's always the potential for manipulation, for disinformation, especially with a topic that generates so much fear, so much speculation, and let's be honest, so much money.
Speaking of fear, let's go back to David Icke and his reptilian overlord theory. We touched on it earlier, but I'm curious about its origins. Like why does it resonate with some people?
Well, Icke's theory, as out there as it is, it's not entirely new. Our source, Alien Demonology, it points out that this idea of reptilian beings secretly controlling the world, it's got roots in ancient mythology, in folklore.
Really?
Huh?
I always thought that was a pretty modern concept.
It might seem that way, but this fear of hidden enemies, of manipulative forces, it's a theme that goes way back in human history. Think about ancient myths about serpent gods, demons disguised as humans. These stories, they tap into this primal fear of deception, of betrayal, this fear that the people in power, well, they might not be who they seem to be.
So Ike's reptilian overlords, they're just like a modern version of this ancient archetype, the serpent in the garden, so to speak.
Exactly. And the fact that this archetype still resonates with people in the 21st century, it suggests that these fears, they're deeply ingrained in us, in our collective psyche.
But why reptilians?
Oh.
Why not some other creature? Why not like giant space slugs or something?
Well, reptiles, especially snakes,
Huh.
they've been associated with deception, with danger in a lot of cultures for a long time. Think about the serpent in the Garden of Eden tempting Eve with forbidden knowledge, or Medusa, that mythical creature with the deadly gaze and the serpent hair. Reptiles evoke this sense of primal fear, this feeling of something cold, something calculating, something otherworldly.
It's like they're this perfect mix of the familiar and the alien, the earthly and the extraterrestrial.
Exactly. And that makes them the ideal candidates for these roles of hidden manipulators in conspiracy theories. They tap into those deepest fears, but at the same time they offer an explanation for the complexities of the world, for the things that we often can't explain.
Like blaming all the world's problems on a secret cabal of reptilian overlords is somehow easier to accept than acknowledging that human greed and ambition, incompetence, that's the real mess.
There might be some truth to that. Conspiracies offer a sense of order, in a world that often feels chaotic. They give us a narrative framework, a way to make sense of events that might otherwise seem, random or just unexplainable.
And if those events involve, strange lights in the sky or weird encounters with beings we can't even describe. Well, that's where the UFO phenomenon comes in.
Exactly. The UFO phenomenon, it's a canvas, you know? It's a canvas where we can project our hopes, our fears, our anxieties. It's a mirror reflecting our own beliefs about reality, about the possibility of otherworldly beings, about the potential for both salvation and destruction.
It's amazing how one topic can hold so much. Ancient myths, modern anxieties, spiritual yearning, scientific inquiry, it's all there.
It is, and there's still so much more to explore. The whole idea of government cover-ups, the ethical implications of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. But for now, let's give our listeners a chance to absorb all this information. We'll be back soon for the final part of our deep dive. We'll go even deeper into the law of one and what it means for understanding this whole UFO phenomenon.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Man, we've really gone through a lot, haven't we? From those hopeful space brothers to reptilian overlords, government cover-ups. It's been a wild ride. Kind of makes my head spin a little.
It is a lot to take in, I'll grant you that. We've gone through so many beliefs, so many different interpretations, so many possible explanations for this whole UFO thing, and yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So much information, and some of it, well, it contradicts itself.
Yeah. Exactly. One minute it's benevolent aliens guiding us, and the next it's these shadowy figures, manipulating everything behind the scenes. It's like trying to put together a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape on you.
That is a fantastic analogy. It really gets at the heart of the problem.
Yeah.
Limited information, conflicting stories, and always that possibility of disinformation, makes it tough to figure out what's going on.
Speaking of disinformation, we keep circling back to the Omega file, right? All those claims about a massive government cover-up, maybe even suppressing advanced technology. How can we know if any of that's true?
That's the million-dollar question, no doubt. Without seeing those classified files, it's impossible to say for sure. And even then, you got to be careful. Can't just take the official story at face value, right?
So we're stuck with this cloud of uncertainty hanging over us. This feeling that there's more to the story, that something's being hidden.
And that uncertainty, well, it can be kind of unsettling, but it can also be, pretty exciting. Makes us question what we think we know, dig a little deeper, consider different points of view.
Okay, but at some point, don't we have to draw some conclusions? I mean, we can't just keep going down this rabbit hole forever, can we?
You're right. We do need to find a way to make sense of it all without getting lost in all the speculation and conspiracy theories. And I think the law of one might actually be able to help us here.
Really? But the law of one, it doesn't directly talk about UFOs or aliens.
It doesn't, no. But its core principles, especially that focus on interconnectedness, on spiritual evolution, they provide this framework, not just for understanding what's out there, but also what's in here.
I'm not sure I'm following you. What do you mean by that?
Think of it this way. If everything in the universe is connected, like the law of one says, then what we believe about extraterrestrials, whether it's, good or bad, it probably reflects something deeper, something inside us.
So instead of just asking, are they out there, we should also be asking, what do our beliefs about them tell us about ourselves?
Exactly. It's shifting that focus, from the outside to the inside, from searching for answers in the stars to searching for understanding within ourselves.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Like the real alien encounter is the one we have with our own consciousness, with our own beliefs, with our own ideas about what reality is,
And maybe, just maybe, by exploring those beliefs, by questioning what we think we know, by facing our fears, well, maybe that brings us closer to that spiritual evolution that the law of one talks about.
It's a lot more empowering than just feeling like we're powerless, like we're being manipulated by forces we can't see,
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we see the world and how we interpret it, even when it comes to something as mysterious and as potentially scary as the whole UFO phenomenon.
So critical thinking, open minds, and maybe a little bit of self-reflection.
Sounds like a recipe for a really deep understanding.
Well said. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. We've covered a lot, from the law of one itself to UFOs, disinformation, all sorts of wild ideas. It's been a real mind bender.
It has, and hopefully it's left you with more questions than answers, more curiosity than certainty. That's the thing about a deep dive. It's not about reaching a a final destination. It's about the journey, about exploring, about discovering.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And who knows what mysteries await us on our next deep dive. Until then, keep those minds open, keep asking those questions, and remember, the truth, it's like the universe. It's vast, it's complex, and it's always unfolding.
Thanks for listening.